The vast halls of the Zephyrian command ship echoed with the sound of clicking claws and humming voices. 12 different alien species had gathered around the massive holographic display that showed their conquered territories. Stars, marked, in blue stretched across half the galaxy, each one representing worlds that had fallen to their might. Admiral Vexitar stood at the center of it all. His tall, insect-like form cast long shadows across the floor. 4 arms moved gracefully as he pointed to different sectors on the map. His compound eyes reflected the blue light of 1,000 conquered worlds. Brothers and sisters of the hegemony, Vextar's voice carried through the chamber. For 3,000 years we have brought order to chaos. No species has ever stood against us for more than a few cycles. The other commanders nodded in agreement. General Thok, a massive creature covered in stone-like skin, rumbled his approval. Captain Zira, whose serpentine body coiled around her command chair, hissed softly in satisfaction. They had all heard this speech before, but it never got old. Our scouts have found something interesting, Vextar continued. He gestured with one of his clawed hands, and the display zoomed in on a small yellow star. A primitive world in the outer rim. The inhabitants call it Earth. The assembled commanders leaned forward to get a better look. The planet appeared, on the screen, spinning slowly. Blue oceans and green continents covered its surface. White clouds drifted across the atmosphere. Scoutmaster Kellic stepped forward. His bird-like features twitched as he began his report. The species calls itself human. They have barely left their home system. Their technology is crude. They still use chemical rockets and metal projectiles. Laughter filled the chamber. General Thok's deep voice boomed above the rest. Chemical rockets? Do they throw rocks at their enemies too? Actually, Kellic continued, they do use kinetic weapons extensively, but their most advanced ships cannot even approach light speed. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no dimensional drives. Commander Yith, whose crystalline body chimed when she moved, spoke up. How many worlds do they control? Just one, Kellic replied. They have small settlements on their moon and a few mining stations in their system. Nothing more. The laughter grew louder. Captain Zira uncoiled herself and slithered closer to the display. One world? And they cannot even travel between stars? This will be easier than our last vacation. Admiral Vextar raised a hand for silence. Indeed, this presents us with an opportunity. We have not had a proper demonstration in many cycles. The outer rim species have grown too comfortable. They forget what happens to those who resist the hegemony. He turned to face the assembled commanders. We will make an example of these humans. A single demonstration fleet will be more than enough. Their surrender will remind the galaxy why resistance is futile. General Thok leaned back in his massive chair. Should we even bother with a demonstration? Fleet? A single cruiser could handle them. No, Vextar said firmly. The other species must see our power. We will send 50 ships, enough to be impressive, but not enough to suggest these humans posed any real threat. The commanders began placing their bets immediately. It was a tradition when dealing with new species. How long would it take for them to surrender? I give them 1 day, Captain Zira hissed. Once they see our ships in orbit, they will panic. Too generous, chimed Commander Yith. Half a day at most. Primitives always break quickly. General Thok rumbled with amusement. You are all being too kind. I say 6 hours, maybe less if they are particularly weak-willed. Only Scoutmaster Kellic seemed hesitant. Admiral, there was something odd in their transmissions. They seem very divided. Hundreds of separate governments on one world. They fight each other constantly. Even better, Vextar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Divided species fall faster. They cannot organize proper resistance when they are too busy fighting themselves. The meeting continued for another hour as they planned the demonstration. It would be simple and clean. The fleet would arrive at Earth and broadcast standard surrender terms. When the humans inevitably refused, they would destroy a few military targets. The humans would see their helplessness and submit within the day. The hegemony had performed this same ritual hundreds of times. It never failed. Species might be brave at first, but courage melted away when faced with impossible odds. "Admiral." Vextar dismissed the council and walked to his private chamber. Through the massive viewing window, he could see the construction yards where their mighty ships were built. Kilometer-long dreadnoughts floated in protective docks. Smaller cruisers darted between them like schools of metal fish. This fleet represented the combined knowledge and power of 12 advanced civilizations. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could absorb the energy of stars. Their computers could calculate battle outcomes before the fighting even began. Against such power, what could one primitive world possibly do? He opened a communication channel to Fleet Commander Roth. The younger officer appeared on the screen, his reptilian features showing respectful attention. "Commander Roth, prepare the 47th Demonstration Fleet. 50 ships should be sufficient for this assignment." "Of course, Admiral. What level of resistance do you anticipate?" Vextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "None whatsoever. These creatures barely know how to leave their atmosphere. Treat this as a training exercise for your junior officers." "Understood. Sir, when do we depart?" "Within the cycle. I want this finished quickly. The galaxy is watching, and we must remind them why the hegemony rules the stars." The communication ended, and Vextar returned to studying the tactical reports. The humans had approximately 2 billion individuals across their planet. Their largest military vessels were crude chemical-powered rockets that could barely reach their own moon. It would not even be a battle. It would be a demonstration of absolute power. As his ship prepared to return to the capital world, Vextar felt the familiar satisfaction that came with inevitable victory. Tomorrow, the humans would learn what every other species had learned before them. The Zephyrian hegemony was unstoppable. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that some younger species had forgotten this lesson. The humans would serve as a perfect reminder. After all, what could possibly go wrong when dealing with such a primitive, divided species? They had no unity, no advanced weapons, and no experience with interstellar warfare. Admiral Vextar settled into his command chair as his ship jumped to hyperspace. In a few days, the 47th Demonstration Fleet would arrive at Earth. The humans would see 50 massive warships appear in their sky, demand their surrender, and submit like every other species before them. It was really quite routine. The only question was whether it would take hours or minutes for them to give up completely. Either way, it would make for good propaganda footage to broadcast across the galaxy. Soon, every species would remember why they bowed to the hegemony's will. Commander Roth stood on the bridge of his flagship as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system. 49 other ships materialized around him in perfect formation. Each vessel stretched over a kilometer long, their dark hulls gleaming with energy shields and weapon ports. "Sensors confirm the primitive world, sir," reported his navigation officer. "No defensive platforms detected, no significant military presence in orbit." Roth nodded. Everything matched. The scout reports. A few small space stations orbited the planet, along with what appeared to be communication satellites. Nothing that posed any threat to their advanced fleet. "Move us into orbit," he commanded. "Standard demonstration formation. I want every human on that world to see our ships when they look up at their sky." The fleet began its approach. As they drew closer, Roth could see the planet more clearly through the viewing screens. Blue oceans, brown and green continents, swirling white clouds. It looked remarkably similar to several other worlds they had conquered. Communications prepare the standard surrender broadcast. All frequencies, all languages we have on file for this species. Lieutenant Vash, the ship's communication officer, worked at her console. "Sir, we have learned 37 human languages from their transmissions. Should we use all of them?" "Yes. We want every government on that world to understand clearly." The fleet took up positions around Earth. Their massive ships cast shadows on the planet's surface as they blocked out sunlight. Roth could imagine the panic below as humans looked up to see alien warships filling their sky. "Broadcasting now, sir." Roth's voice carried through space to every radio and television receiver on Earth. "People of Earth, I am Commander Roth of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our alliance. You will surrender all military forces and submit to our authority. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." He paused for effect, then continued. "We are a peaceful organization. Surrender now and your people will be treated fairly. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why resistance is futile." The broadcast ended. Now came the waiting period. In Roth's experience, most species needed a few hours to discuss surrender terms among themselves. Some took longer if their governments were particularly stubborn, but none had ever taken more than a full day. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet." "Excellent. Patch them through." The main screen filled with dozens of different communication windows. Humans of various appearances began speaking in different languages. Roth had expected one or maybe two responses from their planetary government. Instead, he was looking at what appeared to be hundreds of separate leaders. The translation software worked quickly. One human leader, an older male, spoke firmly. "This is the President of the United States. We do not recognize your authority and will not surrender." Another voice joined in, this one from a woman in military uniform. "This is General Chen of the Asian Defense Alliance. Earth will defend itself." More voices added their refusal. The European Union, the African Federation, the South American Coalition, each group seemed to be speaking independently. Roth blinked, in confusion. How many governments do they have down there? "Sensors indicate over 200 separate nation-states, sir," his intelligence officer reported. "They appear to be politically fragmented." "That should make this easier," Roth muttered. Divided species usually fell apart quickly when threatened. Surely some of them want to surrender. The communications kept flowing in. To Roth's amazement, every single response was a refusal. Some were polite, but firm. Others were filled with what his translator marked as aggressive profanity. A few included what appeared to be challenges to personal combat. "Sir," the communication officer said uncertainly, "they're all saying no. Every government, every military leader, every organization we can identify, they're refusing to surrender." Roth had never encountered anything like this before. Usually, at least some faction within a species would be willing to negotiate. There were always those who preferred survival over resistance. "Perhaps they don't understand our power," he said finally. "Destroy one of their space stations, something obvious but not inhabited. Show them what our weapons can do." The fleet's targeting systems locked onto an old space station orbiting high above Earth. It appeared to be abandoned based on their scans. A single pulse from their plasma cannon vaporized it instantly, leaving nothing but glowing particles. "Broadcast again," Roth ordered. "Tell them that was just a demonstration." The message went out across Earth's communication networks. Roth expected to hear panic in their voices now. Fear, pleas for mercy. Instead, the responses grew even more defiant. A new voice came through the speakers, speaking in heavily accented English. "This is Moscow Defense Command. You just made a big mistake." Another transmission followed immediately. "Beijing military confirms hostile action. All units are now authorized to engage." London Command reporting. "We are at war." Roth stared at the communications board as hundreds of messages flooded in. Instead of frightening them, destroying their space station seemed to have made the humans angry. Very angry. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we're detecting massive movement on the planet's surface. They appear to be mobilizing their military forces." "All of them?" "Yes, sir. Every nation-state is moving to combat readiness. We're seeing missile silos opening, aircraft launching, naval vessels leaving port. It's like they're preparing to fight us." Roth's confusion grew deeper. "They're preparing to fight us? With chemical rockets and metal projectiles?" "It appears so, sir." This was completely outside Roth's experience. Every other species they had encountered showed some sense of self-preservation. When faced with obviously superior force, they made the logical choice to surrender. These humans seemed to lack any survival instinct whatsoever. "Commander," the intelligence officer spoke up, "I've been analyzing their communications. They're not just mobilizing randomly. They're coordinating with each other. Coordinating how? The various governments are sharing intelligence and resources. Groups that were apparently enemies yesterday are now working together against us. They've established joint command structures and are pooling their military assets. Roth rubbed his temple where a headache was forming. You're telling me that showing our power made them unite against us? Yes, sir. They appear to have decided that we're a bigger threat than each other. Through the viewing screen, Roth could see lights moving across Earth's night side. Cities blazing with activity as millions of humans prepared for war. Their primitive aircraft filled the atmosphere, too small and numerous to track individually. Sir, the communication officer announced, we're receiving a new transmission. It appears to be a joint message from something called the United Nations. Put it through. An elderly human male appeared on screen. He looked tired but determined. I am Secretary General Martinez of the United Nations. I speak for all nations of Earth. You have committed an act of war by destroying our property and threatening our world. The man leaned forward, staring directly into the camera. You want to see what humans do when threatened? You're about to find out. We may be primitive by your standards, but we didn't survive this long by backing down from bullies. The transmission ended. Roth stood in stunned silence. In his 200 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. A species that responded to overwhelming odds not with fear, but with defiance. A divided world that unified in the face of conquest. What kind of creatures were these humans? Sir, his tactical officer said quietly. What are our orders? 3 days had passed since the aliens arrived, and Commander Roth was growing frustrated. Instead of the quick surrender he had expected, the humans continued to defy his fleet. Worse, they seemed to be getting more organized with each passing. Our status report, Roth demanded as he entered the bridge. Sir, the humans have completed their military mobilization, his intelligence officer reported. Every nation on the planet has committed forces to something they're calling the Earth Defense Force. They've elected a joint command structure. Elected? In the middle of a war? Yes, sir. Apparently, they held emergency elections and chose their leaders by popular vote. The process took less than 12 hours. Roth shook his head in disbelief. What kind of species held elections during an invasion? What about their defenses? Surely they realize how hopeless their situation is. His tactical officer pulled up a display showing Earth's orbital space. Sir, they've launched hundreds of small craft. Most appear to be converted civilian vessels. They're taking positions around the planet. Roth looked at the screen. Tiny dots represented human ships spreading out in a defensive formation. Each vessel was laughably small compared to his massive warships. Are they seriously planning to fight us with converted cargo haulers? It appears so, sir. Intelligence suggests they've mounted weapons on civilian spacecraft, commercial satellites, even scientific research vessels. They're calling it the emergency fleet. The absurdity of it made Roth almost laugh. Humans strapping guns to their space trucks and calling it a military force. It would be pathetic if it weren't so pointless. Sir, the communication officer interrupted. We're receiving another transmission from Earth. Put it through. A woman in military uniform appeared on screen. Her insignia showed she held high rank, though Roth couldn't identify which human nation she represented. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, Commander of the Earth Defense Force. I'm sending you our final response to your demands. Admiral? Roth spoke aloud. You've been promoted since our last conversation. Chen smiled grimly. The world voted. Apparently, they trust me to handle you people. She paused, then continued. Here's our answer. No. We will not surrender. We will not submit. And if you want our world, you'll have to take it from us. Admiral Chen, surely you realize the futility of resistance. Our ships outmass your entire fleet by factors of thousands. Our weapons can destroy your planet. Maybe, Chen replied, but you haven't done it yet. That tells me you need something from us. Our world, our people, our resources. You can't use any of that if you turn it all to ash. Roth felt a chill run down his spine. The human was thinking tactically. Most primitive species focused only on their immediate survival. This one was analyzing his motivations and finding weaknesses. "You have one more day to reconsider," he said firmly. "We don't need it," Chen responded. "We've already decided. Come and take it." The transmission ended. Roth turned to his officers. "Begin orbital bombardment. Target their major military installations. Show them what real power looks like." "Yes, sir. Weapons charging." The flagship's main cannon powered up, focusing energy that could vaporize a mountain. Roth selected a large military base on one of the northern continents. It would make an impressive demonstration. "Fire!" The plasma beam lanced down from orbit, striking the target precisely. The explosion lit up the surrounding area for hundreds of kilometers. When the light faded, nothing remained but a crater. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "we're getting massive energy readings from the asteroid belt." "The asteroid belt? What kind of energy?" "Unknown, sir. It's very large. Multiple sources." Roth frowned. The asteroid belt was just a collection of rocks orbiting between the inner and outer planets. What could possibly be generating energy signatures out there? On screen, the display shifted to show the distant asteroid field. At first it looked normal, chunks of rock drifting in their ancient orbits. Then Roth noticed something wrong. Some of the asteroids were moving in formations that didn't match natural orbital mechanics. Magnify Sector 7. The image zoomed in, and Roth's blood went cold. What he had thought was a large asteroid was actually a massive structure. Metal and rock fused together in a shape that was definitely artificial. Weapons ports dotted its surface, and energy readings showed it was fully powered. "Those aren't asteroids," he whispered. "Sir, we're detecting similar readings throughout the belt, hundreds of them. They appear to be weapons platforms." Roth's mind raced. The humans had been in space for less than a century. How could they have built installations in the outer system without anyone noticing? When did they build those? "Unknown, sir. Our scouts may have mistaken them for natural asteroids during their initial survey." The tactical officer's voice was tense. "Sir, the platforms are powering weapons. We're being targeted." "Impossible. We're too far away. No primitive weapon can reach us from the asteroid belt." "Sir, I'm reading massive acceleration from multiple platforms. They're launching something." Roth stared at the sensor display. Dozens of objects were streaking out from the asteroid belt, moving at incredible velocity. Whatever the humans had launched was accelerating far beyond anything their known technology should allow. "Time to impact? 18 minutes, sir. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Raise shields to maximum." The fleet began to spread out, breaking their tight formation. Roth watched the approaching projectiles with growing concern. They were too fast and too numerous to be simple kinetic weapons. "Sir," the intelligence officer said urgently, "I'm analyzing the projectiles. They appear to be guided missiles, but the propulsion system is unknown. They're accelerating beyond our theoretical calculations for chemical rockets. Could they have developed new technology?" "Impossible, sir. Our surveillance showed no advanced research. Unless... What? Unless they were hiding it from us. Sir, what if those installations have been there for years? What if the humans saw us coming long before we arrived?" The realization hit Roth like a physical blow. The humans hadn't been caught off guard by their arrival. They had been preparing. "Sir, incoming missiles will reach us in 5 minutes. Should we attempt to intercept?" "Yes, fire all defensive weapons. The fleet's point defense systems activated, filling space with energy beams and interceptor missiles. Most of the human projectiles were destroyed, but not all of them. The first missile struck Cruiser Valiant's shields. The impact was much more powerful than expected, draining shield energy by nearly 20%. "How is that possible?" Roth demanded. "Sir, the missiles appear to contain some form of exotic matter. The warheads are generating gravitational anomalies. More missiles found their targets. The hegemony ship's shields held, but they were taking more damage than any primitive species should be able to inflict. Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the fleet. The humans appear to have hacked our communication protocols." "What?" "They're broadcasting on our secure channels, sir. Somehow they've broken our encryption." Admiral Chen's voice came through the ship's speakers. "Attention, Hegemony Fleet. Welcome to Earth space. Hope you enjoyed our little surprise." That was just the opening act. Roth stared at his communication panel in shock. The humans had not only built secret weapons platforms, but they had also cracked military-grade alien encryption in 3 days. "How?" he whispered. Chen's voice continued through the speakers. "You've been broadcasting on our frequencies since you arrived. Did you really think we weren't listening? Learning? Adapting?" The sensor officer called out in alarm. "Sir, the humans are launching their emergency fleet. All vessels are accelerating toward our position." Roth looked at the tactical display. Hundreds of small human ships were rising from Earth orbit, their primitive engines burning at full power. They looked like toys compared to his mighty dreadnoughts. But after what he had just witnessed, Roth was beginning to think that appearances could be very deceiving when it came to humans. "Sir, what are your orders?" For the first time in his military career, Commander Roth wasn't sure. Across the galaxy, beings of countless species huddled around their communication devices. News of the battle at Earth had spread like wildfire through the star lanes. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone was fighting the Zephyrian, hegemony and winning. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, the enslaved Morvac workers had stopped their digging to listen to smuggled broadcasts from the human system. Elder Gorth, whose people had been conquered 2 centuries ago, translated the reports for the younger workers. "The humans destroyed 3 hegemony cruisers yesterday," he whispered to the gathered crowd. 3. In a single engagement. Young, Kexla looked up from her mining tools. "Is it true, Elder? Are they really fighting back?" "The reports say their small ships swarm the large ones. They use tactics no one has seen before. Instead of fighting ship to ship, they coordinate hundreds of vessels at once." The Morvac workers looked at each other with something they hadn't felt in generations: hope. Similar conversations were happening throughout hegemony space. On Tau Ceti, the aquatic delphines shared the news through their underwater cities. The humans had apparently learned to use the aliens' own weapons against them, capturing intact systems and reverse engineering them within days. Prince Sonar, leader of the Delphin resistance movement, called an emergency meeting of the underground. "Leaders, brothers and sisters," he sang in their musical language. "We have waited 200 years for this moment. The humans have shown us that the hegemony can bleed. But they are so far away," worried Captain Trill. "How can their success help us?" "Because fear works both ways," Sonar replied. "The hegemony's power comes from the belief that they cannot be defeated. But if word spreads that primitives from an unknown world are destroying their fleets," he didn't need to finish the thought. Every being in the room understood. Meanwhile, in the hegemony's capital system, emergency sessions were being held at the highest levels of government. Admiral Vexitar paced before the War Council, his arms gesturing wildly as he tried to explain the impossible. "The humans have somehow reverse-engineered our shield technology," he reported. "Their primitive ships now carry energy barriers that can withstand our plasma cannons." General Thok's massive form shifted uneasily. "How is that possible? Our shields use quantum field manipulation. They don't even understand quantum physics properly." "Apparently they do now," Vextar replied grimly. "Our intelligence suggests they have teams of scientists working around the clock. They're learning from every piece of wreckage, every energy reading, every intercepted communication." Commander Yeath's crystalline body chimed with distress. "What? Of Commander Roth's fleet?" "Scattered. The humans use some kind of coordinated electromagnetic pulse that disabled our navigation systems. Half the fleet is still trying to find each other in the outer system." The War Council sat in stunned silence. Captain Zira finally spoke, her serpentine form coiled tightly with anxiety. "Perhaps we should commit the second fleet. Overwhelm them with numbers." "I tried that," Vexitar admitted. "The second fleet arrived yesterday. The humans were waiting for them." He activated the holographic display, showing the latest battle footage. The Council watched in horror as human ships, impossibly small and agile, darted between massive hegemony dreadnoughts like schools of fish. Every time the aliens tried to target one group, Another would appear from an unexpected angle. "They're using our own size against us," Vextar explained. "Our ships are powerful but slow. They're fast and numerous. By the time we turn to face one attack, 3 more have hit us from different directions." "What about our fighter screens?" General Thok asked. "The humans learn to jam our control frequencies. Our fighters receive conflicting orders and end up attacking each other or nothing at all." The recorded battle continued. The Council watched their proud warships being systematically disabled, not destroyed, but captured. Human boarding parties swarmed over hegemony vessels, somehow managing to take control of ship after ship. "How are they boarding our ships?" Captain Zira demanded. "Our hulls are impenetrable." "They're not trying to break in," Vextar said quietly. "They're convincing our ships to let them in." "What?" "They've learned to mimic our authorization codes. Our own security systems think they're friendly vessels requesting permission to dock." Commander Yith's chiming grew more agitated. "This is impossible. They're a primitive species. They should not be capable of such deception. Tell that to the crews of the Magnificent and the Eternal Glory," Vextar replied. "Both ships are now under human control." The implications of that statement hit the War Council like a physical blow. Hegemony vessels had been captured intact. The humans now had access to their most advanced technology. Back in the human solar system, Admiral Chen stood in the command center of what had once been the hegemony cruiser Magnificent. Human technicians worked alongside liberated alien prisoners, all trying to understand the ship's advanced systems. "Report," Chen ordered. Lieutenant Commander Park looked up from his analysis station. "We've successfully accessed their navigation database. Admiral, they have charts for the entire galaxy." Chen felt her pulse quicken. "How many inhabited worlds?" "Over 10,000. Most are marked as subjugated territories." Dr. Martinez, the lead xenobiologist, joined the conversation. "Admiral, we've been interviewing the alien prisoners. Most of them aren't actually loyal to the hegemony. They're conscripts from conquered worlds." "Conscripts?" "Forced military service. The hegemony takes the strongest members of defeated species and makes them serve in their fleet. Sir, I think we might be able to turn some of them." Chen considered this information. The hegemony wasn't just a military alliance, it was an empire built on forced cooperation. That gave her an idea. "Open a channel to all hegemony frequencies," she ordered. "Ma'am, they'll be able to track our location. Let them, I want them, to hear this." The communication array activated, broadcasting Chen's voice across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth. I'm speaking to you from the bridge of your cruiser Magnificent. My people have a message for every being living under hegemony rule." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We know you didn't choose to. Serve them. We know many of you were conquered just like they tried to conquer us. But here's what they didn't tell you. They can be beaten." Throughout hegemony space, beings stopped what they were doing to listen. "We're just one small world, with primitive technology, but we refuse to bow down, and now we're flying their ships and using their weapons. If we can do it, so can you." The transmission continued for several minutes. Chen described human tactics, shared technical information about hegemony weaknesses, and most importantly, offered hope. When the broadcast ended, the galaxy was no longer the same place it had been an hour before. On distant worlds, resistance movements that had been dormant for centuries began to stir. Weapons caches were uncovered. Secret meetings were held. Plans were made. The Zephyrian hegemony had ruled through fear and the belief in their own invincibility. But the Yar, humans, had shattered that illusion. Now, for the first time in millennia, the oppressed outnumbered the oppressors, and they were starting to remember what freedom felt like. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system. 5,000 ships of the line, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. Dreadnoughts that could crack moons, carriers holding swarms of fighters, support vessels carrying enough firepower to sterilize planets. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, watching the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. This time there would be no mistakes, no underestimating the enemy. The full might of the Zephyrian hegemony had come to end the human problem once and for all. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "long-range scans confirm approximately 300 human vessels in the system. They appear to be concentrated near their homeworld." 300 against 5,000, Vextar mused. Even with their tricks, the numbers are impossible to overcome. The past months had been humiliating. For the hegemony, human tactics had spread throughout their empire like a plague. Conquered species were rising up, using the techniques broadcast from Earth. Entire sectors were in revolt. It had to end here. "Open a channel to the human fleet," Vextar commanded. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, but determined. Behind her, Vextar could see the bridge of what had once been a hegemony cruiser, now flying human colors. "Admiral Chen," Vextar said formally, "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian hegemony. You have caused considerable trouble throughout our space." "Admiral Vextar," Chen replied with a slight smile. "We've been expecting you, though I have to say, 5,000 ships seems like overkill for one small planet. Your species has proven, surprisingly resilient. I will not make the mistake of underestimating you again." "Good. I'd hate to think you weren't learning anything from this experience." Vextar's mandibles clicked with irritation. Even now, facing impossible odds, the human showed no fear. It was almost admirable, if it weren't so foolish. "I offer you one final chance to surrender," he said. "Your people have fought bravely, but this ends now. Submit, and I will ensure they are treated with honor." Chen was quiet for a long moment, then she shook her head. "You know, Admiral, 6 months ago I might have believed that. But we've been talking to your conscripts. We know what treated with honor means in hegemony space. Then you choose extinction." "No," Chen said firmly. "We choose freedom, for ourselves and for every species you've enslaved." The transmission ended. Vextar turned to his fleet commanders. "Begin the final assault. I want every human ship destroyed. Leave nothing intact." The massive fleet began its advance. 5,000 ships moving in perfect formation toward Earth. It was a sight that had made countless species surrender without a fight. But as they approached the inner system, something strange began to happen. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the asteroid belt again." "More weapon platforms?" "No, sir. These readings are different, much larger." The tactical display shifted to show the asteroid field. Where there had once been hundreds of hidden weapons platforms, there were now massive structures moving into formation. Each one was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons and shield generators. "Where did those come from?" Vextar demanded. "Unknown, sir. They weren't there during our last engagement." Dr. Williams, the human xenoarchaeologist, had been working frantically in his laboratory aboard the captured hegemony ship when he made the discovery. The aliens' own databases contained records of an ancient civilization that had once lived in Earth's solar system. They had died out millions of years ago, but their automated construction facilities had remained dormant in the asteroid belt. The humans had found them, reactivated them, and put them to work. "Sir," the tactical officer reported with growing alarm, "the structures are launching something, multiple objects very large. On the main display, dozens of massive shapes emerged from the artificial asteroids. They looked like ships, but their design was unlike anything in the hegemony database." "Are those human vessels?" Vextar asked. "I don't think so, sir. The energy signatures are completely unknown." Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the communication system. "Admiral Vextar, meet the predecessors, the species that lived in this system before us. They left us some presents." The ancient ships moved with fluid grace, their hulls rippling with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. As they approached the hegemony fleet, space itself seemed to bend around them. "Sir, our weapons are not locking on. The targeting computers can't get a clear reading." "Manual targeting, then." "Sir, the gunners report they can't see the ships clearly. They appear to be shifting somehow." Vextar stared at the display in growing horror. The ancient vessels moved through space like ghosts, seeming to exist in multiple locations at once. When his ships fired, their weapons passed harmlessly, through empty space. But when the predecessor's ships fired back, their weapons found their targets with devastating accuracy. Shield generators down on deck 7 through 12. Hull breach on the Dominator. The Unstoppable is reporting complete power failure. One by one, the pride of the hegemony fleet was being systematically disabled by technology that shouldn't exist. Sir, the communication officer reported, we're receiving another transmission from Admiral Chen. Chen's face appeared on screen again, but this time she wasn't alone. Beside her stood beings from dozens of different species. Vextar recognized some of them as former hegemony commanders. Admiral, Chen said, I'd like you to meet the Free Galaxy Alliance. Representatives from every species you've conquered over the past 3,000 years. The alien beside Chen stepped forward. It was Kellex, the former scoutmaster who had first discovered Earth. Admiral Vextar, Kellex said, the hegemony is finished. Your own crews are abandoning ship. Vextar looked around his bridge and saw that it was true. His officers were laying down their weapons and raising their hands in surrender. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes were playing out. How? Vextar whispered. The same way we've done everything else, Chen replied. We learned. We listened. We found out that most of your empire was held together by fear, not loyalty. Once that fear was gone, she gestured to the tactical display, where hegemony ships were changing sides by the hundred. Crews were mutinying, joining the human fleet, broadcasting their own messages of freedom to the galaxy. Your own people don't want to fight for you anymore, Admiral. They want to go home. Vextar looked at the display showing his mighty fleet. Less than a quarter of his ships were still under hegemony control. The rest had either been captured by the ancient weapons or had surrendered voluntarily. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, what are your orders? For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian hegemony had ruled the galaxy through superior firepower and the belief that resistance was futile. They had conquered world after world, species after species, building an empire that seemed eternal, but they had never encountered humans before. Vextar thought about the reports from across hegemony, space, revolutions on hundreds of worlds, former subjects reclaiming their freedom, the carefully constructed order of millennia crumbling in months, all because one small blue planet had refused to bow down. Signal the fleet, he said finally. All ships are to stand down. The great hegemony fleet that had arrived to destroy Earth now floated powerless in space. Some ships had been captured, others had defected, and the rest had simply given up. On Earth, billions of humans looked up at the sky and saw something unprecedented. The largest invasion force in galactic history, surrendering without firing. A shot. The moment was broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. From the mining worlds of the Outer Rim to the ancient civilizations of the core, every being capable of receiving a signal watched as humanity achieved the impossible. They had not just defeated the Zephyrian hegemony. They had liberated the galaxy. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge looking out at the disabled fleet and felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. In the space of 6 months, humanity had gone from an unknown species to the leaders of a galactic revolution. Admiral, her communication officer said, we're receiving thousands of messages from across the galaxy. Species declaring independence, offering to join the alliance, asking for help with their own liberation movements. Chen nodded slowly. The easy part was over. Now came the hard work of building something better than what they had destroyed. But for now, in this moment, the galaxy was free, and it would never forget the species that had made it possible.